Hello, everybody, and welcome to Create Your Best Life with Rex. I am your host. I'm Rex Sykes, and I've got another fabulous guest on a wonderful episode that I know you're going to enjoy. And I'm so happy to have her with me today. Her name is Sandra J. Horton, and she's known as the Success Change Catalyst. And she's a proven positive, motivational, and powerful force for change. And she's my friend. Her message is always clear. Activate success first through your own change, and then lead others to unlock theirs. Powerful. She guides and supports leaders and organizations to create pathways of change with ease, resulting in growth through sustainable solutions. And she spent her first 25 years in professional sales within the healthcare field. And for the last 10 years, she's facilitated and led various change initiatives as a change management practitioner and an active member of the Association of Change Management Professionals. She is the Success Catalyst, where she builds momentum for change for both teams and organizations through a systems thinking approach that delivers high performance results through effective strategic planning, team building, and culture development assessments and facilitated sessions. She helps leaders, CEOs, and aspiring leaders to unlock their leadership potential and prevent burnout. She's also a best-selling author and motivational speaker. This is her book, Activate Success, and this is Sandra Horton. Welcome.
Oh, great. Thank you, Rex. What a great honor to be here with you today. Thank you so much.
It's great to have you here, and I appreciate you. And if truth be told, Sandra and I have known each other for some time, which is great. I get to benefit in so many important ways.
Yeah.
But you're a powerhouse. You've done so many things. You've been in the professional field of helping others through sales and through change work now for many years. Let's just start up for a little while.
Yeah, for a little while. I don't want to date myself.
Right, I hear you. But so what I'm asking, Sandra, is before we dive into the meat of the conversation, what would you say if you had to make a bumper sticker for change? What would that bumper sticker, or that a platitude or an aphorism or something that that people who are wanting to become leaders or are leaders or are wanting to lead themselves, what might they first need to know in order to be have that change happen?
That's a great question. So my bumper sticker and my ethos for anyone, whether you're an existing leader, aspiring leader, change your perspective, change your life. Because leaders understand themselves. They go within, they go through self-discovery, they understand the whole change process and the impacts on people profoundly, especially right now. And then they make a choice consciously to shift, to find new ways to create a we, not an I entity. And that's all part of sustainable impact, understanding the uniqueness that each of us brings in any single moment.
I think that's a really incredible point, because a lot of people think in terms of leadership, they find a role model and they go, I want to be like that person. And they don't necessarily activate their own unique personality factors or their own principles, they don't draw from themselves as much as they try to copy or imitate somebody else. So they're not leading authentically. They're a copycat, cookie cutter leader.
Yeah, they think, okay, I can jump in and be like that person, but yet their innateness of who they are, it's like role modeling by imitation versus authenticity of like, who am I? Like, where did I come from? What is my story, my leadership story within? And for me, if every single leader could take a moment right now and write down on a piece of paper, who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going and how do I want to get there? Guess what? That would transform so many leaders' journeys in just like that. It's a powerful tool.
That is really great advice. I mean, when you think about it, let's talk law of attraction. Let's talk manifesting. Let's talk
Yeah.
Goal
All the
setting.
good stuff.
all the things that we know, under whatever
Yeah.
headline or banner we want to put it, but is that you first have an idea,
Yeah.
but then you put that idea down on paper.
Mhm.
You translate it from the brain, your mind, onto paper. That's the first step. It's like creating a roadmap or a directive, and then from there you can make it happen. But that's
Mhm.
that first step. I think that what you just said, where you ask questions and you write down the answers, is an important step for people,
Mhm.
clarifying who they are and what they're going to accomplish.
Yes. And, for many people, and again, I kind of go back into my own personal story, and maybe this resonates for some people out there. If you're not sure of who you are, you may actually be leading someone else's story. I have seen this so often. I led that for 34 years. My story was suppressed. I believed in the other stories, not only when my family said I should be or could be, which at that time was more of a fixed mindset, but now I'm a growth mindset. So I'm open, possibilities, opportunities. And I was showing up differently than truly inside me and what I wanted to be. And so for you in this moment, journey back in. That's why I'm always saying, stop, take a breath, look at yourself. What stories are you telling yourself? So when you're approaching that next leadership meeting and you come forward and you're having that kind of thoughts about the individual you're going to have that conversation with, or you're leading your team, you're bringing your legacy. You're bringing all of those past thoughts, those limitations, the self-talk, all of the ways of which you think you should be, rather than the ways that you can be. Because all you need to do is just, again, stop, breathe, and make a new informed choice. How do you want to show up? What can you be? How can you be even more present with those individuals? Because if you don't know your own story, then you're living someone else's story. So I think a big part about this, Rex, in which I really appreciate, and I've got your book behind me, is in our journey of integration, not only self-discovery, but also integration. We're always in the process of becoming our best version of ourselves. And that first step is to make the choice to go within. And that's what we're starting and talking about right now, really.
I adhere to the notion that as long as you're alive, there's hope.
Yep.
When you're dead, there's no change. I mean, there may be in the afterlife, but there's no change. It's kind of like being frozen, or as someone I love very much said, the only real genuine flower is a plastic flower, because it will never change. So a real flower is always in process. A human is always in process. So as long as you're alive, there's always hope. There's always the possibility to change. And yet a lot of people are afraid to change. They crave it, but they're afraid of it. Yeah. And so they don't change. They know they should, but they won't, because because of whatever reason. Mm-hmm. So what you said is to stop and to pause. You got to stop what you're doing if you don't want to continue and further what you're doing. You got to recognize it, and then they just get separate from it, is what you're saying. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would add to that, because, and perhaps again, this for some viewers right now, whether you're watching this live now or on Rex's amazing YouTube or visiting his site, one of the things that we have to truly have the opportunity is to know that our dialogue that we're running inside us can be reprogrammed. And the reason I wanted to go here, Rex, because for many people, they have this understanding, this is me, this is how I show up. But as you're showing up, you're not inside you to really feel, and this is a key piece of self-discovery. Do you really, truly know how you feel? What are your emotions? What are your responses to your emotions? As an EQI certified practitioner in working with leaders, this is the foundational piece that you have to stop and look at, because emotions drive us. And if you don't know what you're experiencing or how you're feeling your emotions, you can become suppressed. And many leaders right now are absolutely suppressed in terms of understanding the stressors that are happening for them. They're not truly engaging with what could be a better response versus a reactionary way of being. And so maybe that resonates for you. Maybe perhaps you're having challenges at work and in your teams, and you're agitated and you're angry and you're like, what is happening to me in this moment? You just have to take a moment and uncover those emotions. Unpack what is happening for you, what situations, what triggers are causing you to react again versus respond. And Rex, I know this is a big part for us about reprogramming that subconscious mind, is it's so easy to go into the primitive brain, to react and just do these things and without conscious awareness. So if you're experiencing these moments today or in your next meeting, or you're, having a dialogue with your family member, your kids, whoever it is, if something is triggering you, take that moment of pause and learn about that emotion. Write it on a piece of paper. Because we talk about this, actually, I talk about this in the book, and it's the link between your values, your emotions, your values, and your stressors. So for many leaders, it's particularly right now, I see this day in and day out. If you don't understand what those triggers are and what your true values are, you're going to get stress, and that stress is going to lead to burnout. And I know this is something we wanted to talk about today, is why are people so, like, the numbers are increasing. Forbes was talking about how 60% or more now of leaders are experiencing burnout. Why is it that there is an increase in burnout today?
Well, I think this is a great question, and I would put forth a couple of things, and I know you will too. If you're stuck, something I've said forever, you have to move.
Yeah.
But if you're overwhelmed and everything's going really crazy, you have to stop. So knowing the difference between what you need to do is where experience and wisdom come in. Because today there's so many competing things. The idea of multitasking is great, and at the same time, it's one of the things that's causing people a lot of stress. Because if you're trying to manage all sorts of things and not doing any one of them well, people get tired, they get burned out. There's just too much stuff going on media-wise. People are on their phones, they're scrolling. There's all these, things competing for their attention. And I think there's a certain amount of intolerance that goes on now too, back in the corporate world, where people are going, you know what, that might have worked in the 30s and 40s and 50s, but it's not working today. Yes. I'm not going there and doing that. I can go, I could go do something else if you don't, what do you think? I mean, why are people burning out, and what can we do about it to help them not burn out?
It's a great question. And I always go back to there's a whole bunch of layers to this. So let's just start kind of at that basic thing. What is burnout? Well, burnout, like what Rex was saying, is when you're in that state of overwhelm where you truly cannot make decisions. And there's some pathology within us that is starting to see our raise in cortisol. There's a whole bunch of physical manifestations that are starting to occur within our body. Now, this is not advice or anything, but I would say if you get to a point where you can't function, the SIGI caps, those are all key indicators for a mental health challenge. So I will leave that there. But for the average person, if you're starting to experience shifts in some of your sleep, some of the challenges there in workplaces where you're more reactionary, meaning you burst out, maybe you're more emotional, you're agitated for no reasons. These are all signals that are showing up for you to have a moment of reflection. So burnout is happening, like Rex was saying earlier, because of all of the overwhelm. We're seeing it around us. The world, is in a bit of a chaos. There's things that are out of our control, and there's things that are within our control. So first of all, the first thing is to understand, what is your sphere of control? What is within my control to be able to handle? Well, number one, it's how I look at things. Do I look at things in a more of a negative or a positive state? What am I focusing on in this moment? What am I attracting into my life? If I'm only seeing the negative, then guess what? We know through all of the great leaders like Rex and others, and Napoleon Hill, and the manifestation and energies, if you are aligned to that conversation, we will attract that which we seek. And so if we're negative, we're going to bring in more negativity. What I also see is, if we're understanding, okay, this is in my sphere of control, can I then choose new things to help me self-care? self-care is the number one thing that we need to prioritize for ourselves. I'm seeing this very much in the healthcare sector right now. There is so many senior leaders that are unfortunately burning out. And so they now have to prioritize their self-care. So taking time off, like actually removing yourself from those triggers, from that overwhelm, to reprioritize what's important to you, to get very clear with your values. How do you want to live your life? If health is a priority and you're always working and you're not going, say, even just for a simple walk every day, 10,000 steps is ideal though, would be to, okay, I need to bring in more health. It's that misalignment of what we believe to be so important to ourselves and then how our behaviors are not aligned to those actions. So assess that. Yeah, go ahead, Rex.
No. I'm just leaning forward. I'm leaning in.
Oh, I love it. That's perfect. So the other thing that I have found that is very helpful for individuals who are feeling to that place where they're overwhelmed, they're having some really challenges, take time, self-care, get active, and then take time to share with others who are in your, excuse me about that. Now it's my turn. Sorry, Rex. Excuse me. To share within your inner circle. Excuse me, Rex.
So while Sandra's getting a sip there, you ready? You back? You're muted.
Sorry, Rex.
No. As they say, it happens to the best of us, so it happened to one of the best.
Oh my gosh. I'll have a little bit more sip. Sorry, everyone.
No, don't worry. And while we're doing that, let me just say, if you're watching live or in replay, you can always ask questions, you can comment, you can share, and I encourage you to go ahead and share. You can you can subscribe to the show at YouTube, whatever you want, but go ahead and be sure that if you get value, be sure to share the value with someone else. So thank you, Sandra.
Oh, thank you, Rex. So these are all powerful things that you can do. And just as this good example, you get a tickle in your throat. What can you do? Breathe and release. Breathe and release. And just bring down the thoughts. Bring down the emotions. Because when you're passionate about something, where do you feel it? You feel it in your throat, right? Mm. So this is a good example, a lived example of what you can do. So if you're in that moment of stress, make a choice. What can I do to self-care? What can I do to breathe differently? And I think that's really important, Rex.
Well, I agree with you. And I also think that what happens for a lot of people is the world has become more complex. It's become smaller in that, there's an electronic reach, a grid that goes around the world. We have access to things happening all around the world that have nothing to do with us, locally, but that affect our attitude about the world in general. We've got the things that are going on locally that bother us and things that are going on personally and all that. And I've been a huge proponent of this for forever, and that is just simplify. In other words, people always seem to be going, what's the next thing? What can I do? Some of these empty suits, I call them, are out there telling you work harder, struggle more, take more risks, do all these things, add more stuff, get this, get that, and do it. And they tend to promote complicating your life more.
I agree.
Either because they're stupid, they just don't know any better. I mean, I hate to say that, but inadvertently they don't know any better. And so they just push what they did. A lot of leaders, what I've seen in the training industry for decades now is whoever they learn from, people tend to replicate the mistakes of the person they learned from if they don't know any better.
Yep.
So if I misquote something and somebody then misquotes me, I can go, well, I was wrong. Now they're wrong. And then their generations of trainers will misquote. People perpetuate the very things that they don't want because they don't stop. They don't take a pause. They don't shift to go somewhere else. They keep doing what they've always done that isn't working. And then they get frustrated and flustered and upset and everything else. And they need to just stop, maybe take a bath, take a sauna,
Yeah, that
breathe.
works great. Yeah, and you know what? And thanks again, Rex. It's so funny how when things happen in life, and this is the key piece I have found, that by going within, you get to learn to understand your emotions. You get to feel, okay, I'm coming up to this point that I'm not comfortable with, and I need to shift. And so if that's you, and if you're feeling like, hey, I need to speak up to my boss, or I need to go and let somebody know I'm not feeling right, then just do it. Take the courage to self-care. And I think that is what Rex and I are really trying to advocate for you, is don't allow yourself to get to that extreme burnout phase. Because I've gone through that, because I suppressed my feelings, my emotions. And in doing that, led to ill health. I actually ended up having some illnesses that showed up. I ended up actually becoming anaphylactic to certain spices because I didn't self-care enough to stop. So if you are that leader, if you're that high-driven person who is having to perform, who's doing the work, just listen to yourself. Go within, really identify what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and what outcomes are you actually generating. Is what you're doing right now so important that you're willing to sacrifice your health? I say no. I say it's not worth your mental wellness, your physical wellness for that purpose. Like, we as a humanity have to bring in what I call is an empathy ethic. And an empathy ethic is truly one where we understand someone else's perspective, understands where someone is at, understands that my perspective is only my perspective. Your perspective is your perspective. So how can we grow together to really meet each other in that middle place? And if you're always on, if the pressure is high, do you think that's easy? Unless you make it a priority to really meet your people, if you're leading them formally or informally, and finding out what's going on with them, understanding what is important to them, their values, all of these things right now. If we did that consciously in our workplaces, we would know when people are at risk. We would know when people are getting to that edge when you're saying, hey, you know what? I care enough about you. I want you to be okay. You need to take some time. And then when you come back in, Rex, you're asking what else can you do, is understanding compassionately a re-entry program. So you reduce the number of work, tasks that are assigned. You allow people to gradually re-enter in so that they can, within their own means, come back into the workforce so they're well and they're holistically grounded. And I think sometimes I've experienced it, I've seen it with others, where they get brought back in and they're right into that pressure cooker. So why are you leading this way? That's another important question, Rex. Because in today's society, there are different ways we need to respond as leaders. We need to be, also a global leader. We need to be able to understand different perspectives. We need to understand if someone needs to take time for their traditions and for their, religious services. We need to take and make time for more of what makes us beautiful humans, not just with that outcome of work hard, generate, produce, achieve. That's not what we need here and now in this new era. We call it the new normal phenomenon because COVID changed things. The different generations are not accepting this pressure cooker from more elder, and I'm one of those boomers. I'm at the end of the boomer group, to tell them what to do. People have shifted. The quiet quitting, the loud quitting. They're saying, no way, stop. I'm not dealing with this anymore. So in order to prevent burnout, I'm going to go back into this initial conversation we're having, is we have to understand and meet people where they're at as a leader. genuinely understanding themselves, genuinely understanding the values that people hold, what are their goals, aligning them, and understanding that if people are being stressed, we can't control what's outside of our control in that employee's, background in their own life, but we can have empathy, we can show up for people, we can listen to people, truly listen, and then with informed decisions, create that next step, that direction that allows them to function in a way that is more positive and purposeful.
Wow. That's very, very well said. It had me thinking of a couple of things. I'm going to use an analogy. Part of my other life is show business, and we'll talk be a movie or a play. Let's pretend for a moment it doesn't matter. It's a lead actor, male or female, or some leads, and then there's the other supporting cast and extras and everything else. And a lot of people think, well, because you're the lead actor, you're the leader. Well, if you are the star of the show, if you think about it, you do have a certain amount of responsibility. If you want to have everyone get along and be an ensemble kind of performing team that everybody does well and everybody shines. If you're the kind of star that thinks this is my opportunity and I'm the leader and I'm the one who's making the difference for everybody, and they don't understand, what happens is then at that point, they set a tone that is not conducive for everybody getting along and everybody shining and having a nice direction. So we think that the star is the leader, and in some cases, and in many cases they are, but there could be somebody who's an extra, a supporting player, or somebody who's a crew member who's the actual leader for everybody that's going on, but they're in a more unassuming position in terms of status. So here's my point. There are people who want to be leaders because they're ego driven and they just want to shine. They want to be in front of the crowd. They want to have the platform, the microphone. They want to be on the pedestal, call themselves leaders because it's gratifying to them. But they aren't that concerned with the people who are their followers. Now, if I were a leader, I would never call them followers to begin with.
Correct.
Because it's not really very cool. But the point is,
true.
Taking that into consideration, if you're a leader and you're a sensitive and empathic leader and empathetic leader and everything else, then if you get burned out, by example, you're not leading very well.
Correct.
So a good leader, apart from being non-egotistical and concerned with the people who are around him, also know that, hey, I have a role in modeling effective behavior. That might be to relax, to simplify, to self-care, to take care, so that the people who are attracted to my message also do those things, so that together we're all benefiting. And it's not, I'm not adding to their stress by being stressed myself. I mean, if you just look at
100%.
The kind of rapport that people can have, you want to make sure that everybody's doing the best they can. So what say you?
Yeah. You know what? I love the word rapport. As you know, the rapport master over there with Rex. Rapport and building trust is so important. And I don't know where that registers for you. But when you come around people, you innately know, I can trust you. You sense it, you feel it, you experience individuals. So I would offer one of the greatest things you can do now is do a check-in. Like truly, the next couple days, do a check-in with everyone that you engage with in your work environment. Take time to go and learn what's new. As Rex always says, what's new and good? Or learn something new about that person. Check in to see how they're doing with their own mental wellness. See how they're doing with their current workloads.
Well,
Are there things that they can do? Sorry, Rex. Are there things that you can learn that you can support? That is really an interesting piece, because you talked about the ego. And one of the greatest things that we can learn in this beautiful world through self-discovery from within to without is the impression that this lovely little ego in this lovely little brain has to be center stage. So make a choice now. Remove it. Put it over here. set it aside and go in fresh and approach the people who are close to you and genuine with a curiosity. What is possible? What is new? What is the opportunity in this moment to learn something from someone else that could possibly make a huge difference in their lives? Because the greatest thing, and one of my big motivators and my empowers, and I just get like revved up when I talk about this, is there's too much bullying in organizations. Wow. And bullying, we know, whether you're reading Forbes or any of the other great research areas, McKinsey and all this, they all talk about the impacts of bullying and those leaders who are very dominant. They're coming in with an old model. This type of leadership style does not work and does lead to and can have a direct impact and prevent negative consequences on those who you lead informally or those you work with. So we need to understand the impacts of the ego and how we speak, how we are impacting others. So take time, remove it, go into your next conversation with curiosity and ask, what can I learn that's new? How can I support? How can we create a we, not an I, and build the trust so people are open to you?
What I love so much about that and about you is what you just demonstrated and shared is that it's the willingness to pay attention to others and to get into their heart space, their mind space, to serve them and go, hey, what's going on with you? What's new? What's good? What's happening? Because a true leader isn't there just to lead. They're there to find out what these people have so that they can uplift them. It's kind of like the reason for being a parent is so that your children go on and hopefully do better than you do. You don't want to suppress them. Now, here's an interesting thing. And I've said this for a long time, and people don't get it. The idea of bullying oftentimes comes from spare the rod and spoil the child. True. Well, the rod isn't a stick to punish people with, if you think about it. If you've ever read Psalm 23, think about this for a second. You know, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He restores my soul. He guideth me to lie down, guideth me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And though I walk through the shadow of the valley of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me. So if you really think that you're beating someone with a rod, if it comforts them, it's the idea of a shepherd who is guiding and leading and caring for the sheep so that the sheep can go on and proliferate. Because if the shepherd lets the wolves or the beasts attack them, they're no good. And if the shepherd attacks them, it's no good. What you're demonstrating is the idea that the bully mentality that is really outdated, both in parenting and in leading and in education and in every walk of life, is that one, you win more bees with, you should say, you win more bears with honey than you do with
yeah, exactly.
Bees make honey, so that's not a good idea. Yeah, but the point is that you have this heart-centered, heart-focused attention on other people and their well-being.
Yep.
And when you can exemplify that, then people more want to follow because they're not intimidated, they're not threatened, they're not cajoled, they're not bullied into doing it.
Yeah. And Rex, the other thing that kind of pops up for me is I'm going to pivot just a little bit, but I think the interesting piece is understanding that when you're engaging with someone, we have to, and I'm going to go into change management, into change readiness. We really have to be able to tap in and assess or reassess where that individual is in their ability to create the change, their willingness to go into change. And what I've seen really demonstrated lately is that people are not aware fully of the reasons why they need to change. So part of this inquiry, this curiosity that you could have with this next group would be to check in and define, is this person able? Is this person willing? Do they have the awareness of what needs to change, both personally and perhaps maybe you're looking at systems change in your organization? So the awareness piece is very key. And you can ask some just general questions, asking them like, do you see your place, moving forward? How does this impact you? What would you like to know that would, make you feel more confident or confident in terms of what is going to change? Do you feel ready for this change? And asking kind of some clarifying questions with individuals to see their change readiness. And if you feel at this point that there is this awareness, then is there a desire to change? And I've seen this readily in different groups and different individuals, individual coaching sessions, as well as larger teams, that the desire to change can be completely a game stopper. If someone says right now, I just can't change, that requires a whole subset of actions and opportunities to work with the individual to get them to understand and align their values of how they can go through change. So as an example, if openness is an important value to you, and the next day you come into the office and someone comes in and says, hey, we're changing seats, we're going to change our process and our how we're doing things, without any kind of meetings, no town halls or anything that's coming out, do you feel that person is going to be receptive? Do you think that person's going to be open? No, because they violated their fundamental value of openness. People need to understand why it's happening, the awareness of that change, what is going to change, the impact on them, what's going to be required, and then that impacts their desire. So if you perhaps had that conversation, say, hey, you know what, Rex, we're going to have this change happening because we're going to bring in AI. We're going to make our systems a little bit easier for customers to come in and get your great book. And they're going to help with a navigator to be able to go to Amazon and get your book. Oh, okay. That makes sense to me. So we really have to do some of these core change processes in anything, any type of change. So awareness of why the change is happening, the desire to really gauge if that person wants to engage, what their level of ability to change. And then as we're evaluating the desire, then the knowledge. So, okay, so now what? What information do we need to give back to them? So Rex, I'm going to check in. How does this resonate for you? Like, does this make sense to you in terms of that awareness, the desire, the knowledge? We'll go through the other points as well in just a second. But
I just think there's so many brilliant points that people should watch this again and again and again and again and again and again in order to imbibe all of it and to be able to apply it. One of the things that you said that people aren't aware of changing, and we know that that's true. So they don't know. If they aren't aware that they need to change, they probably don't know what they need if they are going to change. So once they become aware, they go, well, now what? Now what do I do? And the old bully kind of leadership tells them, do this, do this, do this, do this. You have to do this, do this. I think a more heart-centered leader would ask a question like, what is you trying to accomplish? And is that, how is it going? And if you're not getting what you want, are there other ways you might be able to, imagine making this happen? I mean, in other words, you're kind of you're not trying to tell someone and order them what they should do or how they should do it, but you're drawing from them their resources and their own talents and abilities to be able to see beyond what was stopping them. And you're putting, by asking them questions and by speaking and operating the way that you suggest, you're giving them the power. You're facilitating it with them, but you're giving them the power to see their own changes and make their own changes, as opposed to, look, I swept in, I've rescued you, I'm the cavalry, aren't I great?
Exactly.
Here I am, the leader. And you would hope that you do that with your children, your teenagers, your significant others, the people around you, your co-workers, your associates, up or down the ladder, that you learn, because so many golden nuggets in everything that you shared there, that people would learn that it's more important to keep the relationship and connect in a way that serves the integrity and the ego of both people, and then to just force change on anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's so interesting because, we talk about the stacking effect. If individuals have had a lot of change, and many people have had a lot of change, that's just a fact of life right now. And we talked about this earlier. It's one change on top of another change on top of another change. What does that do to you as a person, right? You're going to make a decision how you respond. Either you're going to perhaps repress or disengage. Like, there's different paths that people will take to change. And the greatest thing that we can be aware of as a leader, whether you're formal or informal, is where that person is in this moment. And for some, maybe that's that knowledge piece that you're gleaning from that. Maybe that's, what could I do differently to give this person information that will help them move and shift from that state of overwhelm into empowerment. That's a big, shift, or even just into neutrality, that I'm open. Okay, I'll listen to you. I see a place for me in this change, or for me, how I'm going to do it. And the most important thing is that it needs to be delivered, as we know, as a ProSci certified change management practitioner, that it needs to be delivered. The research always shows this, and it's so important, is it needs to be delivered by that immediate manager, not by a senior executive, by a VP who's coming in, who's going to make all this change. It needs to be from a trusted source. So when you're looking and going through these change pieces, and you're just developing your plans, you're developing your strategies, know there's different people who need to deliver different types of information so that people can receive it, and then do something about it. Because we know if people take the information and they aren't allowed a say in it, or at least some kind of feedback, then they're going to resent, and they're going to resist, and then they're going to disengage. So put yourself in that forward way and engage people first and early and often. And guess what? When we get into their ability and they're starting to do and trialing the new way, or whatever that action is, they're going to have a higher success rate. And then they're going to reinforce that positive, hey, I did change, and make it reasonable. And be able to also say, hey, wait a second. Let's take a pause. We go back to the very beginning, breathe in, and let's just stop for a moment. Let's look, what has that change impact been on the people? Not just the processes, but the people. Because at the end of the day, why do we do what we do? So we want to make a sustainable impact, don't we? But individuals have to go through the process of the change. And I know we haven't talked about Kubler-Ross, like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and kind of the stages of even grieving, right? Because for many people right now, people are still grieving. They're grieving some losses, even post-pandemic. They're grieving the way that things were. And we need to understand people in their own journey go through all of these different processes. And I don't think, unless you truly are a conscious leader, that we're giving enough airtime, enough value attached to us as humans, and what we need to be okay to go through change.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, and I do think it's important that as a leader that you can recognize the different stages or places people are in, so that you can help them stay there, move, change, whatever might be needed. I mean, if somebody's angry about things, maybe the way you approach them would be different if you understood that, you have that they're angry, or if they're grieving, that's different than if they're angry. I mean, so being sensitive to that. I want to ask you about feedback, because a lot of times leaders go, well, I'm giving you feedback, and take my feedback because I know better, this, that, and the other, the kind of bully leader. So how important is it for the leader to be willing to get feedback, not be the smartest person in the room, but be the person who's willing to listen? Not all feedback is good feedback. By that, I don't mean it positive or negative feedback. I mean, some of it's people say things because they're not being helpful. So it's not warranted feedback. But other times there's feedback that the leader might really want to know, and would benefit by if the leader's open to receiving feedback, and that depends on the kind of leader you are.
Correct. That depends on your level of emotional intelligence. Depends on your level of truly of self-awareness. of where you are in the journey. Like if as an example, if I was to go back into my old self and being a woman of in the 6th decade now, early, if I looked at my earlier versions of myself, would I have been able to have these robust conversations and really be open to people giving me feedback? Because I experienced what you just said, and many people have and still continue to do it. It's the understanding that your tonality, your cadence, your style is so important, because the impact on others by how you deliver your message matters. It matters, because if you are forceful, if you are too direct, people need to have different ways to send and receive information. And I know this is your jam, Rex. So it's so important to understand that, to and so many people, especially if I've had experiences lately, outside of some of the contracts I'm doing, I see it. Like, if you don't know something as a new leader, understand, to be a great leader, the number one thing you can do is have vulnerability, to say, I don't know. I don't know. And then go and seek feedback, or as Marshall Goldsmith always says, feed forward, which I love that, which is, hey, if I could change this one area and just this one piece, what future information can you give me right now that would help me improve in that area? I personally love that. I love to be able to frame it into kind of like the happy sandwich, the good, maybe things you want to shift, and then reframe it. And that is a nice way. And Rex, I would love for us to go into how we receive information. I think that would be a good learning as well, if you wanted to dive into that, perhaps, because there are ways for us to help people receive information or see information differently.
Well, let's do that. And we've got about 10 minutes where we do that. And then, so before we do, let me first ask, do you have some gifts or giveaways, so that if we run out of time, that you already have pointed out, that where people can reach out to you and find things? And
Absolutely, Rex. Thank you so much. And you can go on the little banner there. It says www.sandrahorton.com. And I have 3 lead magnets in there that I would love for you to click on. I've put them in there for you to walk away with how to truly lead, as especially in this new hybrid world. This is a really important way of how to lead teams that are remote and also in person. And there's some beautiful assessments that you can do as a leader. So how to assess your organization, and you get it's called my Growth Catalyst scorecard. And then we can meet after and have a 60-minute debrief on that. And that is free. And so I hope some others will take that up, because it's a great tool to look at across your organization where you're at. And also with my book, you can go to www.activate-success.com and pick up our book and workbook, because as we know, you need that supplement, that workbook, to really do the work, not just read it, but do the work.
that's beautiful. So on top of those awesome recommendations, what else would you recommend, or are there resources or something that people should know or do that would help tune them up for what we're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to just go back to Rex too, because Rex has some beautiful, amazing tools that I know I took advantage of when I was going through my journey 4 years ago. And this is the important thing, everyone, that, we stand on the shoulders of masters, and Rex is one of those beautiful masters. And I always want to honor that piece, because I don't think everyone does that. And I think that's really important. I always appreciate the great books with Napoleon Hill. I also, in my book here, where's my arsenal that I have right beside me, I really love the work. It's called Emotional Management. It's a really great, interesting book by Green. And also the work on fixed versus a growth mindset. Because many individuals, and I was one of them back then and there, where I grew up with very high expectation parents, and I lived a certain world saying, hey, this is how I am. But in reality, once I shifted to openness, to the growth mindset, my life changed profoundly. And that I can change. I have the capacity, I have the resources within. I'm not fixed. I'm growth. I am capable. And that really is very foundational. The last thing, Rex, for resources, I still love to go back beyond our book, because it is a huge resource book, but ground into Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I still feel that that is a foundational tool to understand that as we develop, as we evolve, understanding that, we're so primitive. Like, we need our physiological needs met. We need to understand our self-identity. So dig into who you are, where you're going, how did you get there, and how do you stay there? Because if your self-identity perhaps is in the past, based on old ways of being, old ways of thinking, these mental models, you can shift them. And I really feel fundamentally that understanding those layers into transcendence is very powerful. So whatever age, wherever you are in your journey, understand some of these experts who've done the good work, done the research, learn it, grow, have a growth mindset, be open to learning, and just become this sponge of new information so that you can continue to evolve. And lastly, for me as a woman of faith, when I was able to foundationally transform, connect my heart to my mind, to a higher calling and source. For me, it's God, but for others, it could be, universe, whatever that is for you. That is a gift we can give ourselves, because then we become a servant. We become for others, not just for ourselves.
Wow, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for that. Now we got a couple minutes, just a couple minutes.
Get me talking, Rex. Get me talking.
Talk about receiving, and then I'm going to have to close out the show. So we wanted to talk about receiving. What is it that you wanted to point out or say in terms of receiving? And we've got about 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay. Well, for me, the gift in life is to receive the abundance of just being in that present moment, being able to be your best version of yourself, being able to attract like-minded people who are in service to others. So just know that what you think, I'm repeating this purposefully, what you think matters. So choose wisely, choose to bring in the positive and not the negative. Just make that choice, and every day take time for self-care, to receive the abundance that is, and just see the gratitude, see the joy. This is where my beautiful abundance comes from, was with Rex. And it's so profound, and you can do it. And that's what I want to send out to everyone, is that you can do it. You are amazing.
Well, and you are amazing, and they are amazing. And the cool part about it is that hopefully you and they and I and they and you and us, we all are in it together, kind of thing.
Yes.
And it can spread more and more good around, and help people come into the fullness of their own being, wherever they are. You were talking about that earlier. It's important to meet people where they're at, and to invite them to join you and to move with them, as opposed to trying and yanking them into someplace else.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Well said. And always know you have your own perspective. Others have their perspective. So choose to build dialogues, not conversations.
So we still have about a minute, and it doesn't give you a good amount of time, but the difference between leading your family, your friends, your children, whatever, and the corporate arena, rules are different, obviously. In a nutshell, can you give us a little indication of what to do?
For me, number one, you got to know yourself. You got to go within. You got to know your values. How do you want to show up? Because there should be alignment between both your family and how you show up with your family and how you show up at work. Name them. Number one. Number two, you need to self-care. Because without you being well, mentally, physically, psychologically, socially, all of those domains of self, you cannot be your best version for anybody. So look after yourself, care about yourself, go into your heart. Number three, bring in gratitude. Be grateful for everything that is around you. Have a growth mindset. What is new? What's curious? This stuff works. And know it works because I am living proof. You model it. You become it. I am it. That's the truth. Anything is possible and the opportunities are always there. So raise up, bring up your frequency, bring up your energy. Because if you're like this, you're not going to get anything. So come on, look like, bring up, sit up, show up, and that's it. And be open to others, to build trust, to build love. And that's the kindness that we need in the world to raise conscious leaders. That's my hairy, audacious goal, to impact directly 3 million individuals to become conscious leaders.
Beautiful. Well, I want to thank you for your time and for your contribution to me and to everyone here, to people watching now and then in the future, both the live and the replay and the way it gets shared around the world. So I appreciate you. And I want to invite you to stick around. I'm going to close out the show. And so don't go anywhere. You'll be going back to the green room, but stick around. And then you and I will connect in just a couple of moments. But I want to thank you so much, Sandra Horton. Go get her gifts. Go get her the things that she has at sandrahorton.com. We'll show you that one more time. And you'll be glad that you did. Sandra, thank you so much. You got a fabulous book. I have the workbook right back there too. I should have grabbed both of them, but it's easier to hold one book than two. But thank you so much. And much love, peace, and blessings to you.
Thank you so much, Rex. Bye for now.
All right, bye for now. Well, I really enjoyed that. Sandra is a force of nature. I love her so much. And I appreciate her being here. And I hope that you will share all of this out so that other people can benefit from her expertise and from her wonderful book and from all of her insights and everything that she so marvelously does. So thank you. Also, I want to tell you, importantly, you can get my book at rexsykes.com and everything. But I want to tell you about Tesla and Einstein, or Einstein and Tesla. It's Create Your Best Life Using the Genius of Einstein and Tesla. And what it does is it addresses creativity and your ability to be creative, to think outside the box so that you can make the kind of changes that you want to make and transform that much more easily. It talks about and you learn how through workbooks, manuals, videos, question and answers, and the whole thing. But it addresses your intuition and how to be more intuitive and more creative and to overcome problems and limitations by activating a really successful way of solving problems using Einstein and Tesla's genius, among other people. So I encourage you to go check out Tesla and Einstein. It's a wonderful course. Right now it's discounted. It's 75% off the program for a limited time. I won't tell you any more than that, but go to rexsykes.com, Einstein, and check it out for yourself, and you'll be glad that you did. I promise you. It's a beautiful, beautiful program. And it's being discounted, just so you know, because I'm adding components to it. I mean, there are workbooks, there's videos, and there's a number of cells or lessons, that are numbered. I can't find the word right now. But because I'm adding to it, I've discounted the program in the meantime, just as my gift to you. So go get that. Go get my book. Go get some programs. Visit me at rexsykes.com. Go to rexsykes.com/Einstein, and you'll be glad you did. And meanwhile, again, go check out Sandra Horton. Go see the replay at Create Your Best Life with Rex on the YouTube channel and share it everywhere. All right. So with that, I want to say thank you so much for being here. I want to thank my guest, Sandra Horton. And I want to say, if you consider something a problem, it's a problem. If you consider something a blessing, it's a blessing. So celebrate everything. And with that, I'll see you next time. And have a beautiful, magical, marvelous, magnificent, and miraculous day. Bye for now.